Welcome to Monday Night Live, the weekly training that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and start building your wealth.
So guys, I'll go ahead and get this started. And what I want you to do is everybody can write down one thing that's challenged you, and maybe it continues to challenge you. Could be a buyer, a seller, you're negotiating, listing. I've actually, one of the ideas came from Connie, actually, from a recent conversation with, and I thought, I'm gonna make that a subject for the class. But in any case, offers too low, right? Listing price too high, offer too low, cut your commission. That's the most common, right? Everybody has that. So if you have not had anybody ask you to cut your commission, consider yourself extremely extraordinary because it happens to everybody. And I'm going to give you a really easy way to account on that. There's actually a couple ways, but one way that really works for sure, and it's all in how you deliver it. I'm going to give you that to you. And here's another one that really tests your mettle. Who here has ever had a transaction where actually you're negotiating an offer? Doesn't really matter if you're on the listing side or the buyer side, you're negotiating this. And you've got it to within like 5%, right? And just all of a sudden everybody's like digging in their heels. The buyer says, well, I can't go any further. So what is the seller going to say? Well, I can't go any further either. Like that's going to help, I think they just do it because it's an ego response. So raise your hand if you ever had that scenario. You're really close. And you're like, man, we gotta, and it's tempting to do what? It's tempting to cut your commission, right? If you call the other agent, hey, if I give it a little bit, will you get a little bit? In fact, let's cover that one first. So I had that happen to me a few times in the past, all right? And just like a lot of us, I caved in because I'm thinking to myself, actually, I could just hear it now. It's like a recording. I'd rather have part of something, right, than not have any part of anything, right? As if you're thinking if you're the only one that doesn't give in here, the deal's going to fall apart. That's the feeling you get, and that's what they make you think, you know. But let me ask you this: how many of you think, in hindsight, that buyer or that seller was just pushing to see how far they could go? How many of you think that's probably really what was going on? They're just seeing if you'll cave in. They can save a few extra $1,000. I'm telling you, that's a large portion of what it is. Okay. So, in any case, I'm going to give you a couple of execution handlers I heard early on, but I'm always thinking, well, I'm not so sure that's going to float their boat. And one of those is this: you're supposed to say to your response to the buyer or seller, well, you know what? Do you ever ask your dentist to cut their rate when they put braces on your child or fill your cavity? Do you ever ask your lawyer to cut their rate? Did you ever ask your doctor did you ask your doctor to cut your rate when he put a cast on your child's leg when he broke a leg bike riding? And those are emotional pulls, right? And they may work, but here's I'm just going to give you what I did. I'm going to ask you guys for input to give me some ideas that you had, because the whole purpose of the class is to help each other, learn from each other, not just for me, right? So here's the one that seems to work for me the best. And it actually came out of frustration. I was sitting there and I'm on the phone. And once again, it happens again. Somebody's asking me to cut my commission. And, I, you know, in hindsight, I should have thought more before I reacted, But what I said was, you know what? Everybody under the sun's making money on this deal except for me. And I'm tired of people asking me to cut my pay. Now, I'm pretty sure at that moment, I wasn't making any friends, and it wasn't probably helping my cause at all. But what it did was planting a seed in my mind. I thought to myself, you know what? There are a lot of people making money on this deal. The inspector, the appraiser, the title company, the attorney at the title company, right? The person who's selling the homeowner's insurance, the person who's making the loan. There are so many people making money on this deal. Sometimes contractors too, right? Sometimes zoning boards and occupancy boards they're all making money on this deal. So it occurred to me, you know what? And I did, by the way, I didn't think of this at that moment. So I just, went ahead and caved in. But I decided to make that my rebuttal from going forward. And I practiced it. And what happens is when you do it this way, you're not acting from emotion. You're acting from facts and information. So here's what I would say. If somebody says, you know what, I'm really worried about not having enough money for closing and all this stuff, and we need to buy furniture and we got to pay the movers. You think you could take a little bit of a hit? And you're like, because you're making a lot of money on this, you know. Um, and what I started saying was this. I would say, I tell you what, I really feel for you. I've been there before, man. I know what it's like to be tight on funds. You're buying a house, man, you got all this fees and expenses you didn't even expect, and it's just hitting you from all sides. I said, so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do my part, and you need to let me know what answers you get from all the other people that are involved with this transaction. Let's start with the title company. They're going to make a pretty good fee on the title policy. And then we'll go to the lender. Lender's making just as much as I am. Let's go to the lender. You know, let's go to the attorney. Who here thinks attorneys make all the money in the world and they need to take a cut themselves? Of course, everybody's going to say yes to that. And I just go down the list. And I would ask them, please write these down. Yeah, I want you to call these people. And you just tell me what kind of responses you get, because I want to do my part, but I want to make sure everybody here is doing their part too. It's a team effort. It's a team effort to close this deal. A lot of people involved. By the way, I think we should ask the buyer and the seller, both parties and the other agent too, to kick in too. I tell you what, I'll you call all those other people. I'll call the other agent and ask them to ask their client to kick in a little bit, and the agent to kick a little bit too. I'll do that part. You call the other 7 people, and lo and behold, all of a sudden, their their philosophy on this whole thing changes because they're not going to call all these people, you know. And I would say, and I really appreciate where you're coming from. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. But just like the inspector, the appraiser, the attorney, the title company, the lender, everybody else involved, they're doing this to make a living, to feed their families and go on vacation. And I'm doing the exact same thing. So, and I guess you think I'm a nice guy, and I really think I'm a nice guy, but I'm also really good at what I do. And but I'm also a nice guy, and I want to do my part. So if you call those other people, let me know what you come up with, and we'll get it all in writing, and we'll take it to the closing table. We'll take care of it all right there at the closing table. I've never, ever, ever had one person ever actually take me up on that. Not one. And I've used it dozens of times, you know. So in any case, I know you've all heard other handle ways to handle that objection. And one of them is this. I'll give you 2 more, by the way. One of them is, I need money to market your property. Marketing your property is not free and it's not easy. And the less you give me in commission, the less I have to market your property. Now, the old saying, you get what you pay for. Do you want me to go cheap on the marketing and then you'll get cheap on the sale? Would you rather me really market what out of this property and bring you multiple offers where we get at the highest and best scenario that does what to the price? Price goes up, which means you make more money. So which is better? Go cheap, buy the cheap stuff, or go for the gold, you know? And that can work. I've had that work before, you know. And another one is this. You say, most people go to college to learn to be an architect, an attorney, a lawyer, whatever. Say, I didn't go to college to be a real estate agent, but I've spent more money learning to be the best real estate agent in our area, way more than I've spent on college over a lot of years. And I mean hundreds of thousands of dollars. And guys, that's a fact. I bet you I've spent at least $1 million on my education over the last 30 years or something. Probably, matter of fact, it'd be 30 years this year. How about that happening? Since I took my first real estate class. Isn't that amazing? So in any case, Sean, I would tell him that never worked, by the way. Like, so what, or they would say, well, yeah, well, a doctor can, do brain surgery and heart surgery. Can you do brain surgery and heart surgery? That actually have to be one time. If no, I can't do brain surgery. But in any case, those are the objections that I'm familiar with and I've used. But the one I gave you in the middle, does that sound like something you can do? Like, just raise your hand. Does that sound like something that's reasonable? It doesn't sound, you're not like testing somebody's ego. You're not being obnoxious. You're actually using facts and information, you know? Okay, questions or comments on that one? Has anybody ever used that one before besides me? You know, it's funny. There's only three of you that have your cameras on tonight, and I'm one of them. Isn't that amazing?
So I'll just say quickly, Gary, that part of the Sotheby's training that I had gotten when I was there was certainly, we spend a lot of money on that marketing and investing in their properties. So similar to your point there. And there's surprisingly a very small percentage of people out there. I can't remember. I feel like it was maybe only 15% of people that actually wanted that wheel and deal, lower commission price, whatever. And
Mhm.
regardless of what your presentation was, they're going to go always with whoever gives them the smallest percentage of commission. And those people, just let them go. Like, it's okay, because they're also going to be the same people that are unrealistic about the offer coming in and wheeling and
Yeah,
dealing challenging ways on that as well. So, lean towards the other huge percentage of people that are willing to pay a little more for, a better product, a more experienced and a better overall experience, and be okay
yeah.
with that. At the end of the day, there's always that tiny percentage of people that are just going to wheel and deal and let them go.
Hmm.
But most
Yeah.
people actually, want the better product, and they are willing to pay more for that. So,
Yeah. You know what's amazing? You just made me think of is one sure way you can actually increase your odds of success, guys, and getting really good clients, clients that actually, have hold you at a higher level of esteem and have more respect for you. It's in your marketing. It's how you show up in the marketplace, you know? So if you're out there and you're doing a really good job on your marketing, your brand looks good, you show up on social media, now of course YouTube, one of the easiest things you can do completely free, and it has one of the best reaches of all the different things that I've seen. And that's just not me saying that, not just because I got 1,300 videos on YouTube. But the reason I have 1,300 videos is because when I only had a few videos, I learned I was getting far more traction from YouTube than I was from anything else online, Facebook, LinkedIn, the whole nine yards. Um, but in any case, the key is how do you show up in the marketplace? Now, if you guys noticed tonight, I'm not wearing a suit jacket. You know how I've been wearing a suit jacket for the last year, almost the last year, right? Every single night. The only reason I'm not doing it right now is I decided I was going to do a test. So, and don't be shy, but when you think of me wearing a suit jacket and I'm still wearing the same kind of shirt, button up collar shirt, right? Can you tell a difference in how you're perceiving me now versus all the times I wore a suit jacket? It might be subtle, but it's probably there. Just raise your hand. I mean, don't worry about my feelings, honestly, guys. I laugh at myself every day. So, you know, there's nothing you can say that it's gonna,
I think
you
you
know,
still look sharp, Gary, but I know what you mean.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's true. If here's a really great thing to say to yourself. Um, look in the mirror before you walk out the door and ask yourself, when I do business with this person, does what I'm wearing make me feel confident, right? And competent? And by the way, as you increase your competence, all of a sudden you feel more competent. You guys ever notice that? It's also the other way around. The more competent you are, the more confident you're going to be. So dress the way you want to feel, all right? And that can mean a lot of things for women. For men, it's we were lucky, button up collar shirt. There you go. We're done, But it's what makes you feel that way. Okay. When you feel that way, it's going to show up. But the outside world, just think of it as in a big mirror, it's reflecting you. And when you feel confident, it's going to show up out there. Okay. So, in any case, how you show up in your marketing, your branding, the messaging you're putting out there. Like one of the things I'm famous for is getting in a hurry when I'm sending my private text to you guys. I see all these errors in there after the fact, But when I'm putting stuff out to the clientele, uh, that stuff I pay more attention to because I'm going out. I'm not saying I don't care about your opinion. I do, but on a text, it's private one-on-one, and I'm usually in a hurry. But to the world, I want the spelling to be correct and the grammar, punctuation, and everything. And one of the things that really hurts me, I'm just being totally candid here, is I have virtual assistants that are not as careful as I am. and they make mistakes, and I see it. And it's always after the fact, after something went out. Sometimes I'll do a correction because it could be damaging. Most cases, I just let it go. But I put measures in place for them to you know, validate what each of them was putting out there. And I'm, we're addressing that. But in any case, the point is, the people that are going to respond to your branding and your marketing are the people that you're actually speaking to in your branding and your marketing. The way you look, the way you talk, you're going to attract similar people. It's just a fact. Birds of a feather flock
Okay, I have
together.
a question.
Yep. Go ahead, Kate.
Okay, so I'm obviously older. I have white hair. I think I dress pretty professionally. I try to show up professionally, but I've noticed that people of my age, everybody's gotten so much more casual. So sometimes I feel like if, I'll wear a dress, but I won't put on a jacket, and I don't know. I'm kind of confused right now about where the market is in terms of, all these cute young realtors are, showing off their body parts and wearing sexy dresses and stuff. And that's not me. I'm not going to compete in that arena. So what advice would you give a woman?
Oh boy. I can always count on you, Kate. So I'm going to be candid with you. I've got, obviously I'm a mom. I still have a stepmom, sister. I've been married and I got a daughter. And I will tell you this, it really goes back to what I was saying a moment ago. I wouldn't worry so much about um, what other people are thinking. I know this sounds crazy, but remember what I said. It's how you feel.
Okay.
It's how you feel confident is what you're wearing. And by the way, I think you look marvelous. I'm looking at you right now. Your hair, your earrings. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Smile. Look at that smile. I'm telling you, man. So, and by the way, I know what you're talking about. Some of the realtors out there, and I'm probably could get in trouble saying this, but they generally are in parts of California and Florida. It's not everywhere. It's just certain parts. I've noticed. Believe me, I've taught all over North America, and I'm telling you for a fact, those two areas that's where we're going to see more of that being more pronounced. Um, and I can see how that can have an effect on you, right? But just remember this, what when you're dealing with the right kind of clients, and I'm going to use investors as an example. I learned a long time ago. I really need to change the clients that I was working with because I was starting to attract all the no down, low down, no money down, all this kind of stuff. And I did some of that investing and it works. It just doesn't work very well. When we think about it, they're using those techniques because they lack what? What do they lack?
Confidence.
Money.
Oh, money. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. And if they don't have any money, you're probably gonna have a hard time making money from them. So I started intentionally looking for people that were professionals, business owners, things like that. I wasn't doing anything unethical or wrong or immoral or anything like that. I was just thinking, I want to work with people that are professionally minded, that understand money, because I was tired of working with people that didn't understand money. And that's why they were broke. Being broke is a temporary thing, it's a state of your pocket. Being poor is a mindset, right? So what I was looking for is people that took time to understand how the money worked. It's a commodity. It's like the trees and the rocks out there and the gas. It's a commodity, it has value. People buy and sell dollars all day long. They trade it. It's an exchange. It gives you a medium of exchange, right? Exchanging value. So in any case, sorry I don't have to ramble there, but back to this. So I'm going to give you an example. I met a dentist one time, just pure dumb luck, you know, and he was looking for a property to buy. I just happened to be in a property. Like I'm an investor. I'd already made two offers that day on two other properties. I knew I was going to get them. And looking at his other property, I think, gee, at least wish I could get this one too. And this dentist called me and said, hey, somebody so and so said I should call you because I want to invest. And apparently you work with investors. And none of the other agents I know to have a clue what they're talking about. And I said, well, I do. And he said, do you have anything? And I said, well, you're not going to believe this. I'm actually standing in one right now that I wish I could buy. And I don't want to make an offer and not be able to bring the horse to the show ring. And he said, how much you want for it? I said, well, I don't own it, but I would feel happy to represent you. And so I did. I made $2,500. I met the guy one time, saw the house, went to the closing. That was it. Probably a total of an hour and a half of work. I made $2,500. And guess what he did? Well, first he bought another one. But guess what else he did? You think dentists hang around each other? They do. They play golf together. They go to conferences together. He told his friends. And that's when I realized, ooh, this is a good group of people to work with. They all had money. They all appreciated what I was doing. They didn't treat me like crap, like the other people.
Oh.
Anybody ever feel like they get treated like crap? I mean, good Lord, let's be candid about this. So it all goes back to the marketing. You want to put yourself out there the way you want the world to see you. Okay. Just use whatever you got. Make the best of it. You know, that's what it comes down to. And it's worth it. I don't mean you have to drive a $100,000 car. That's not what I mean. People, you might impress younger people with a $100,000 car, or people who are, I call them bling people. But dentists, people who understand money, you know what they're going to respect more than anything at all? You driving like a Toyota Camry. That's a fact. The car most bought by millionaires is a Toyota Camry. Imagine that. And you
I
don't
have
even
two of
know.
them.
There you go. See, you're a millionaire.
I
It's
got
already
one
there,
right.
Tim. It's just waiting for you to step into it, you know?
And
So
I'm using that as my work car, not my nice SUV.
there you go. Yep. So any case, so that's an excellent question that you asked, by the way, because it weighs on our minds, and it's a very real thing. Remember, you can't control other people and what they think. You can only control yourself and what you think and what you wear. What you think is going to directly affect how you feel. I'm sorry, what you wear is going to affect how you feel and what you think. You know. So in any case, a little hint here, guys. A few years later, I think I told you guys this. I was in San Diego teaching, and one of my students, Cedric Farrell, was up in Orange County. He was asking the same kind of question. He said, "I'm tired of these tire kicker, no down, low down, junkie stuff. He walking in houses with cobwebs and bugs falling on you. Yeah, that stuff really happens. But when you go out with these dentists, you know what? They buy nice properties. They want to be proud of it. When they go out to dinner on Saturday night with their spouse, they want to look and say, hey, look, honey, we own that one over there. They don't want to be doing like this and ducking, you know. They take pride in their properties, you know. So in any case, I got on this on I was on that was called GoToWebinar. We didn't have Zoom at the time, GoToWebinar. And I got on did a Google search. Orange County Chiropractor Association, Dental Association, different kinds of engineers. It turns out, hey Kathy, how you doing? Turns out there was a chiropractor dinner, association dinner 2 weeks later. And I said, Cedric, I'm buying the tickets right now, $40 a piece. We're going to have dinner. I'm going to meet you there. And you're going to walk out of there with a handful of contacts of good clients. And he did. He walked out of there with 9 contacts that night. And all I had to do was sit at the table with all the old guys and just chew the fat with them and shoot the breeze. And of course, they're asking me, who am I? What do you do? Oh, I'm Gary Wilson. I teach real estate agents how to work with real estate investors. Really? You have anybody up here in Orange County? I sure do. There he is right there, Cedric Farrell. You should go meet him. and he walked out of there with 10 real phone numbers and real email addresses, you know? So that's the kind of stuff that works. Everybody here, man, if you're not part of your Chamber of Commerce or Rotary Club or something like that, some professional organization, just do it, you know? Just go, pay for the dinner, pay the $40. If I'm ever out your way, I'll do it. I'll do the same thing with you. I'll pay for your dinner. I'm going to show you how absolutely freaking easy it is, you know? So in any case, you show up there, you just wear what makes you feel, again, professional, what makes you feel good about yourself and confident. And just keep writing that down and keep doing that. In any case, by the way, here are things chiropractors and dentists are probably pretty good groups of people to work with. I mean, when you look at this slice section and cross section of the population at large, pretty good groups of people. Engineers are really darn good. I love them. There's bunches of them. Civil engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. Good Lord. There's even ceramic engineers.
Want to learn what's working right now in real estate? Then don't miss Monday Night Live, happening every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Each week, we bring you expert training on real estate investing, agent attraction, lead generation, marketing, and AI-powered strategies to help you work smarter and scale faster. You'll also hear inspiring success stories and lessons learned from some of the most successful real estate leaders and investors in the industry. Whether you're a brand new agent, a seasoned investor, or building a high-performing team, there's something valuable for you every single week. Learn, network, grow. Registration is completely free. Simply visit globalinvestoragent.com to reserve your seat for an upcoming Monday night.
Imagine that. It's a real thing. They're people, all the power lines you see with those ceramic looking discs, they actually are ceramics, but they're made for high voltage electricity and heat and things like that. So in any case, so can you see how you can have some control over the client you're working with? Yeah, by joining associations, showing up, looking like you're ready for business, you know. So in any case, I think I beat that horse to death. But let's see here. Here, ready for the next objection? You guys okay? Okay. So Connie, can I loosely borrow your example? It's you know, your example actually, you hit two objections on one person. So, and I'm totally blown away.
Fucking jerk fly.
What's that? Oh, hang on. This something about jerks flying. But hey, Connie, would you mind tell everybody instead of me reciting it, tell them about the client with the property and how you handled your commission and the pricing. You know.
Okay, that was from sending out letters, and you know how the do not call list is. Everybody on my list was do not call, so I couldn't call them. So anyways, I had one lady finally responded, and she has a house, a cabin in Prescott that she's using as an Airbnb, and she's tired of doing that, so she wants to sell it. The price she wants is 679,000. The comps aren't really there, they're close. But the first thing she said to me is, I'm only paying 1% commission. So I said, well, I'll meet with her, which I met with her Saturday. And I think we connected. She just lost her husband. And so we had some things to relate to. Anyways, she had one agent that said she would do it for a higher commission. I finally said, well, just to be nice to you, I'll do 2%, but I'm not going any lower than that because of same things that Gary said. I have marketing to pay, and people don't understand that we don't get all that money. We have fees, the broker has to be paid. And I was explaining all that to her, and said she didn't realize that. She thought these agents were all getting, all this money. And I said, no, we have to pay everything out of pocket and fees and so forth. Anyways, I took the listing for 2% commission.
Well, that's okay. The good news is you actually doubled what she was offering you right out of the gate. You know.
And she has 3 lots that she wants me to list too that are all adjacent to that property, so that'll be good too.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. At the end of the day, and I will tell you guys, when this first came up last week, I have to admit, even I was like, "Oh, this really stinks," because the lady was way off in her valuations, but and in the commission too. But I just remember thinking, I said, "Well, I would still set the appointment." I mean, she's the one that's got to make the drive for one thing. You just never know how it's going to turn. That's why you just try. You don't give up. You keep trying. Swing the bat. My gosh, you
Gary,
just don't know.
I have another question.
Okay.
I have a deal that I've been trying to work for like a week and a half. And the other agent, I think, is just being a turd. I don't know if they're really presenting what I'm offering to the clients or not, because I got it to where we were only $10,000 apart. And then I said, would your seller be willing to offer us 90-day financing for the $10,000? And all I got back is, no, my client isn't interested in owner financing. So I don't know where to go with that one.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to be jumping around here a little bit. What is the price point?
185,000.
Okay, so you're almost within 5%, right?
Yep.
Okay. So and you're only asking the seller to finance 10,000 for 90 days. And the 10,000
90
is the
days.
hand money? Is that what the 10,000 represent?
Pardon?
Is the hand money, does the 10,000 represent hand money or earnest money? What's
It's kind of a combination of closing cost and the rest of the earnest money.
okay?
I mean,
All
yeah,
right.
the rest of the down payment. They've got the earnest money, but it's a down payment.
Okay. Well, here's something you can do. And this was a little bit complex, guys, so just bear with me, but it works. Okay. The buyer getting a loan, are they getting a conventional loan or VA or what? Do you know what kind of loans they're going to get?
Private money and cash down.
Private money. All right. Um, if you're interested, if you go to the 6th book that I wrote, I think it's still in publication. That's the book actually called The Massive Passive Cash Flow. Look, that's the name of
Okay.
the book, what we named our podcast after. In there, I think it's chapter 6. There's 30 different creative purchasing techniques. Okay. Well, for those of you on a team, I can actually get that for you for free. If you're a guest, and unfortunately the way the contract's written, like for the editor publisher, that's all I'm allowed to do. And I own the source material. Like I can give you a chapter, for example, something like that. So if any of you, I don't know what the book is now, $10, $20, something like that. If you don't have that or don't want to spend that, just email me and I'll send you that chapter. I'm allowed to do that. If you're not on a team, if you're on a team, I can get you the whole book. Okay. But in any case, one of those techniques is this. You could create a note. So in other words, the buyer gives the seller a note, make it more than 10,000, make it like 20, something like that. Okay. Um, and then that note now has value. It can be sold. That seller can say, look, I got somebody who owes me 20,000 bucks. I'll sell it to you for 10,000, and then you collect the other 10,000, something like that. That's a little bit of a stretch, but I've seen that work. But here's what I like to do. Because again, it's based on facts and information. When you look at a settlement sheet, you get the seller side and the buyer side. The seller side's typically paying commission, right? Which is, historically about 6%. You've also got transfer taxes. So let's think of this commission, right? Hold my fingers to commission, transfer tax, right? Prorations of property taxes and anything municipal, a lienable item like water, garbage, sewage, that kind of stuff. That's 4. There's all kinds of other miscellaneous. Look at the settlement sheet. The fees, you don't even know what all that stuff is. Here is enough there to easily make up 5% for the seller. And what you do is, let's say it's $100,000 property, just for simple math. And the seller, no matter what, wants to net 95,000 because they know they got 5%, or let's say 90,000 because they know they're going to have 10% of fees coming out, 10%. So let's say we'll give you $90,000 um, uh, and take, let me hang on a second. I'm doing it backwards. What you're ultimately doing is you're taking the seller's fees and putting them on the buyer's side. So, right. So in any case, you're right. That's right. You're lowering the price. You're lowering the price. So the seller is going to get the net they want. Maybe they'll settle for 89,000. Maybe they'll cave in $1,000 or something like that. So your buyer is going to have more money. But what the buyer does is all those items we just brought over to the buyer side, those are all expenses you can take in the year as an expense in the year you took them. You don't have to make them part of your cost basis. Okay, most of those things. So if you look at the buyer's tax bracket, okay, and if they're in a 25% tax bracket, that means they're going to get 2,500 of the 10,000 back at the end of the day. So there's 2,500 right there, right off the bat. You just got halfway there. So okay, what we could do is if you want to do a one-on-one, we could look at your project. Let's work through the math and see how close we can get by doing that. So the buyer will have to get more money on his or her private money because they're now taking on more expenses. But it gets the seller out of the way, and the seller should make some concession, right? I'm not saying they're going to go a full $10,000, but you might be able to get them to go up to $2,500. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
now you're making some real progress here, and the taxes will take care of the rest, or the tax return for your buyer. So I'll go over that with you privately, so because I don't
Okay,
want to.
sorry. I just was trying to figure out how to handle her. It's like she doesn't negotiate. She won't off make a counter. She won't do anything. I don't know how to deal with the other realtor.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that that other client was yours, we'd have a lot more available to us, but we don't because it's somebody else's client. So, and all you can do is make suggestions, but that agent might not have a lot of experience. They might be completely intimidated by their client, and anything and the way they present it, they could be presenting it like, gee, I hate to bother you with this. I know you're probably not going to like it, but here's what they said this time around. What's the seller going to say? I mean, he just basically conditioned him or her to say no, you know. So if you had a really good agent on the other side, they would say, look, I want to show you something here. Here's the benefits. Here's the pros and cons. This is a creative way to get this deal done. Are you open? This is what a good agent would say. Are you open to learning about this strategy? We've done it before, it worked. Are you open to it? You first want to get them to say yes. Get them to use the word yes. When you ask somebody if they're open to it, those two things, it does actually open up their mind. Number one. Number two is it puts them in a yes state of mind. So, so something like that, Kay, it really works wonders. Another technique is not going to work here. You could say, look, tell your seller, we're so confident we're going to pull this deal off. We're willing to give you 20,000 earnest money, non-refundable, you know, and see what they say there. Actually, who knows? Maybe the private lender will be willing to do that, you know. But raising the hand money, the earnest money, in fact, I'll tell you what, guys, and I don't recommend this unless you're really a seasoned veteran. I bought a property one time and I went in with a half price offer, cash. But you know what I did? I sweetened the pot by making it the entire hand money, the earnest money was the entire offer. It was a pretty big risk on my part. I knew I was going to get the property and I already knew I was going to do the property. I made way more than my money back, a lot more. But I went in there, full, half price, all cash, and all of it was in the earnest money check. I put everything at risk and I got the deal, you know? So stuff like that, I mean, you have to be able to do it. You can't just say something like that and not be able to deliver. But since your buyer is getting private money, he may be able to get the lender to make a stretch for him to get this deal done. You know, do you know the lender, Kay? The
Yes,
private
yes.
person? Yeah. Run it by him. I mean, is it a good deal? Like you really feel like the buyer is gonna make some money on this thing? Is it an investment or is it their own home?
Well, it was originally a rent to own, but I'm trying to figure out because I've got this gap. I've been trying to figure out the best way to strategize it and get it for the buyer.
Yeah. Well, I would talk to the private money guy or
Okay.
girl and ask them, here's two alternative strategies. Which one do you like the best, or can you see a combination here? Maybe the lender will put more up front and you do the tax thing. But I'm telling you, when you're that close, here's my rule of thumb. If I'm within 10%, guys, on a deal and we're negotiating, everybody digs their heels in, I'm gonna work for that 10%. You know, you don't always get it, but most times, well, one thing for sure, if you don't try, you definitely won't get it. So you might
Yep.
as well try. I mean, you've already gotten 90% down the 100-yard dash. Why not kick in the afterburners for the other 10 yards? Try everything you can, So,
Okay.
Kate, remind me in the email. I'll send you that chapter. And you can see
Okay.
all the different 30 techniques you can use to,
Okay.
sweeten the pot a little bit. So, well, that actually took care of the fourth objection. So, let me go back to the second one.
What was the name of that book?
Oh, the Massive Passive Cash Flow. It's on Amazon. At least last time I saw, it's been several months. It was still in publication. We haven't promoted that thing for years, but people still buy it. So the reason I wrote it was to attract investors and agents. That's the reason I wrote the book. And I wanted people to see all the stuff that I did, and they could just use what I did. I never really wrote it to be a number one bestseller. I didn't want to go around you have to go on tours all over the world, at least the US, signings, book signings. And I'm thinking I'm done with all that stuff. So I moved into it, you know. But in any case, okay, let's go back to the seller thinks they're sitting on a gold mine. They think their house is $1 million. And every fact you have, all the data you've got tells you it's a $500,000 house. Prior sales, comps, the county, the county's appraiser says the same thing. Everybody thinks it's a $500,000 house. Yeah, this person is just absolutely, totally convinced it's worth $1 million. The first thing is always do the research, right? That's what Connie did. And everything I suggested, she'd already done it. Look at an RPR, of course, to do a CME from your MLS. Go to the county records, everything you can gather, all the information you can. Okay. And so when you're meeting with the seller, this is one of my most common responses to them. And I came up with this after I've been in the business for years, because at first I'm like, they're not listening. Raise your hand if you ever heard that. You felt that way. They are just not listening. Yeah. So it turns out one of the responses they came up with actually started working. So what I said was, I would ask them, can you show me where you're getting the information from? Because I'm just not seeing it. All the things we have available to us in the real estate industry, everything is pointing to this being $500,000. If you can share with me your source of information, at least I can use that. I'll use it in my marketing. I'll use it when I'm dealing with the other agents. I know I can sell your house, right? That's what I would say. And if they didn't have an answer, if they would just say, that's what we want. We know that's what it's worth. Then like Robin said, sometimes you just got to let them go, On the other hand, it never hurts to have a listing out there, especially if you don't have any. It gets to do some marketing on that, even if you've got a 1% chance of success selling it. Because what else do you get when you market a listing? What's the other benefit of marketing a listing?
More listings,
You get more buyers.
buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. You get more press time, right? More PR. But in any case, I would ask them that. Now, in Connie's case, the lady actually had information. Isn't that amazing? So if you do it that way, there's no way you're going to end up with mud on your face, because either they got their answer and they have the data, or they have no answer, and then okay, they're just being unreasonable. And you just do it to get buyers, or you just don't do it at all. But here's something that would really work. When somebody was being real stubborn, and they would say, I don't care. I know this house can sell for $1 million. And they would say something like, and I believe you, Gary Wilson, can make that happen. And here's what I would say. I'd say, look, do you really think, with all the data out there that they have access to as well, that somebody's going to come along and agree that in spite of all the data, they're going to pay twice what the house is worth? That's probably not too realistic. I mean, do you really think, I'd say this, do you really think everybody out there, if they're real dummies out there that just don't care? And sometimes they would say, yes, yeah, I think there's dumb people out there. You know what I would say then? I'd say that I think you can really hang on to your property. If you're really convinced it's worth that much money in this short a period of time, you've only owned it for 10 years, whatever, and it's quadrupled in price. If that's the trend, I would advise you to hang on to your house and not sell it. Call it a takeaway, and then see what they say. So, and sometimes they'll just say, fine, I'll go get another realtor. And you know what? You just move on. But here's the technique I really want to go over with you guys, because it really works like a charm. You've all seen appraisals where they have the comps, 3, usually 5 comps, 5 comparable sales in the area, right? And the appraiser is going to take one of those comps, the one that's closest to your subject property, and start making adjustments. Your property has a 3-car garage, the comp has a 2-car garage. They have to make an adjustment there. They're going to adjust the comp. They're going to adjust the comp down because it has 1 less parking space, right? So, or garage bay. They're going to go through that to all the way down. So I decided to do this one time. I decided I'm going to take all this information to the seller, the comps that I knew would be used in an appraisal, right? And I picked the one I thought would be the closest one, and then the subject property, and actually dumped all that in a spreadsheet, and I printed it out, and I took the spreadsheet with me. All right. Now, what I learned to do later on is do this on a yellow pad, legal pad. You actually make your own chart and just put it all in there that way because it's more powerful when you turn it over to the seller. So I want you to check off these boxes and fill in these boxes with the adjustments I'm going to give you. So it's cathartic. They have skin in the game. So we'd look at the comps. I'd say, look, I'm not going to tell you which one the appraiser is going to use. I just want you to look at these and you tell me in your own word which one of these is most closest, most like your house. Inevitably, they would usually pick the right one. If they don't, I would show them, well, actually, appraiser's going to pick this one. And here's one. I would give them the reasons why. Now, here's where the magic happens. You can do this with all the properties if you want. It'll take more time. But if you just do the one that you believe appraiser will use as the comp that they're going to use to make adjustments on, have the seller go down. You can turn the pad over to the seller, give them the pen or pencil and say, I want you to write this down. Check off where your house is better and where the comp is better, like just check mark. And then do a line where they're exactly the same. And on the ones where they're different, we got to make some adjustments. Okay. Now, let's do the adjustments. Let's go down there. Garage bay is going to be $10,000. A brand new bathroom is going to be $20,000, whatever it is. Go through the list like that. At the end, you add everything up. You say, look, this is what this house sold for. The final piece of information is what it actually sold for. It's hard, cast in stone. You can't deny it. You can't argue with it. It's on the record forever. And tell them, I said, that's what the market believed that house was worth. 3 months ago, had multiple offers. This person outbidded everybody else, and still this is what they paid. And it's a full $100,000 less than what you just said your house is worth. Do you really think somebody's going to come along and just not give a hoot and say, fine, I'm going to give you an extra $100,000? Is how likely is that going to happen? Now, when I'm doing this delivery, guys, I'm not being a smart aleck like I am right now. I'm being humble as the dust. I'm asking them, I'm looking at them, asking them questions, filling out this chart. At the end of the day, that usually works. And here's the other thing too. In most cases, it's a husband and wife pair, couple, right? And in most cases, one of the couple is going to speak up and say, hey, that you can't lie with the data. This guy's right. I want to sell and I want to move to wherever they want to move to in 6 months. I don't want to wait another year. I don't want to have my kids go to school another year here and wait another year to sell. I want to sell and we need to price this house right, and that will usually work. It takes a lot of time, but I'm telling you, it works, guys. And the best part of all is they can't argue with you. You're just a messenger. They can only argue with the data. And guess what? They can't argue with data. So has anybody ever used that technique before? Oh boy, that's a good one. I would use it, Robin. How did it work out for you? Mhm.
I actually always do that, even when I'm running comps for investors.
Good. Mhm.
And I do like a plus or a minus, even if you're not going as deep as calculating that was giving it a value of an extra 10 grand for that or whatever, like an appraisal would do. But even just the plus and the minuses, if they see that, this house has larger acreage, more bathrooms, more bedrooms, younger,
Mhm.
than theirs, then it's pretty clear that they're not
Yeah.
valued at the same price. So
Yeah.
just keeps it nice and easy.
You ever have when one of the couple finally starts to speak up a little bit? They're like, "Hey, I really think we should stick with the data," that kind of thing. And for me, that was always that's what won the deal for me. It really wasn't me saying anything
I mean,
special. It was just,
ultimately, it's them coming to terms and,
yeah,
analyzing the data. You want them to set the price anyway. So if they're
yeah,
looking at those numbers and, they're like, okay, this is where our house sits within this, information. So.
yeah, yeah. Hey guys, any questions on that? On that technique, the objection handler there? Or does anybody have any good war stories to share in that regard? Okay. All right. Let's look at one more, but it's actually a twofer here. It's the classic offer is way too low. It's just, to me, it's just as painful as somebody wanting to seller list their price for twice what it's really worth. Who's ever had that happen before? You're working with a client, you're all excited, you showed them 30 houses, and 3 months later, they're finally making an offer, right? I I had one time, actually this happened to me recently, one of our agents on the team. There was multiple offers. It was a great deal, by the way. It was a duplex, and really nice one. The one you really want to make the stretch for. So the agent wrote the offer. It was like 186,000, something like that. And the other agent actually told our agent, this is what it's going to take to get this deal, which they should never do. But the two agents knew each other. So the other agent, unfortunately, kind of broke a few rules there. Um, so lo and behold, this agent thinks she's got it wrapped up, ready to rock and roll. It before the end of the day, remember, so there's a magic rule here. Even if you extend an offer, if you rescind it before the other agent presents it, or they present the other person doesn't respond, and it's still the same calendar day before midnight, you can pull it back, no harm, no foul. You know, I've seen that happen. So in any case, here's what happened though. The buyer calls at 9 o'clock at night, and this is a Saturday, and said, we want to change our offer. We want to make it 150,000. And the agent called me up and I'm like, holy cow. And I have to, sometimes I get caught up in it, and I felt defeated. I thought it's not going to work. I mean, I didn't personally see the property, but I saw the listing, looked at the comps. I thought, holy cow, somebody's going to make a lot of money on this. The buyer would be, by the way. She had to change your offer. It was before midnight. She had to change it. And the other agent was livid. Like, what's the matter with you? And this poor agent's like, I wish I could, my client's part devil or something. I don't know what she told him, but guess what the seller did? They actually pulled the listing. They said, look, we're done with this. We're not going to sell. We know what it's worth. We're going to wait. That's what they're doing. They just remodeled it completely. Their game was to remodel it and sell it for top dollar because they knew all the rents had gone up. And right now, let's face it, guys, is it hard out there to find a really good looking duplex right now? It's in good shape. It sure is. Yeah. So that buyer totally blew it. I mean, just flat out, just bomb, you know. And I tried everything in the book, different creative purchasing techniques. I'll give you one. It's called a rent participation mortgage. So what you do is when the buyer and seller are way off, the buyer's way lower than the seller, and you have the unique circumstance where the house is the subject property is either totally not rented at all, or has rents in there from 20 years ago. They never raised the rents on their tenants. Well, I used to see that all the time, right? And by the way, for those of you that own properties, you own rentals, you need to raise your rents every year to keep up. Even if it's $11.18, raise your rent. You'll thank me later. Because if you don't, you get in the habit of not wanting to lose a good tenant and not raising your rent. And that turns into 2 years and 3 years and 5 years. I'm telling you, don't do it. Because when it comes time to where everything else is going up and all of a sudden you're not making any more money, you got a tough choice. You got to either raise double the rent to make up for all those lost years, or they'll move, or you sell it, or whatever, But in any case, back to the original subject here. What you can do is this: if it's a really good property, the sellers are being unreasonable. They know they can rent it for more, but they haven't done it. And this one example, by the way, another example, actually was a 30-unit building. It had 20 vacancies. And I'm thinking, and they inherited it, by the way. So these are two kids, had no idea what they had. They just thought it's going to be worth $10 million or something. They had no clue how to value it. They had no idea what it meant to have a 2/3 vacancy ratio, how horrible that is, the lenders and everybody. So I said, do a rent participation mortgage. And here's what it is. For the difference, let's say it's 300,000 and the buyer only wants to pay 200,000 because it's only 1/3 rented right now. That makes sense. For the other 100,000, what you can do is you can say for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, whatever you want to do, for the units that are not rented, right? You're going to take today's prevailing rate, and then based on that, every year thereafter that it's rented, and you're making more than that current prevailing rate. You raise the rate 20 bucks. Let's say you raise the rent 100 bucks per unit over the next 10 years. You split the difference between the buyer and seller. Half of that rent increase, only the increase, goes to the old seller and half goes to the new buyer. You do that for as long as it takes to satisfy the seller and the buyer. It's called a rent participation mortgage. And the reason it works is um, the seller still has some skin in the game. If what they have is a really good product, they'd be willing to do it. If it's not, then you know it's just not a good deal. The buyer still makes money. They're still getting rent increases over the years. They're probably going to be a better property manager. All they got to do is raise it a little bit. Because what happens, see, when you raise rents, your costs are relatively fixed. That's a complete total top line increase. Well, guess what evaluations on rental properties are based on? Net operating income. So if you raise your net income by $10 a year at a 10% cap rate, that means the property is worth $100 more, right? $10 times 10. So do the real math on this. Figure $100. You raise the rents $100 per unit, right? And your net operating income goes up, and you're making out another $20,000 a year. At a 10% cap rate, that's $200,000 in value. See why I like my buyers to do rent participation mortgage? They don't have to keep it for all that time and until that agreement is exhausted. As soon as they raise the value of the building by 50%, for example, just sell it. Cash out. Do a 1031 exchange at a next bigger property. Is that making sense, guys? What I'm describing there? The rent participation mortgage? That's one really good way to get away with that. Now on a single family home that's going to be used as somebody's residential, dwelling, obviously you can't do that. But what I would tell the buyer is this is just like what happened with the other agent, the listing was pulled. The seller said, I'm just not dealing with this anymore. When my buyers would do it, I would say, look, here's the deal. Same thing reverses the thing we did on the listing. I would show them the comps and say, look, this house is most likely going to sell for this price range. It's just a statistical fact. And then within 45 days, according to the data we have, it's probably going to sell for something like this. And you really like the house. It's got all the bedrooms you need, the bathrooms, the yard, it's near the schools, it's everything you've asked for. Are you really going to let this one slip through your fingers? And guaranteed somebody else is going to be living in here. You're going to drive by here in 3 months to see another family with 3 kids enjoying the pool in the backyard. And you're still living in that little apartment, right? And your kids are going to start school end of August. Is that what you want? Because that's what's going to happen if you make these kind of offers. You're not going to work, and by the way, it's also going to hurt your reputation. Agents talk, particularly in small towns. If you move into a small town and you're start making these low offers, everybody's going to know, because there might only be 100 agents in that town, and they all know each other. That's a fact too. So in any case, I would just use that. Say, look, guys, if you're happy where you are, then just stay there. Just don't buy anything. Just stay right where you are. You're paying less in rent anyways. Why move? Well, we want the pool. Well, how bad do you want the pool? Of course, there's kids there. Kids are screaming, I want the pool, So just do this. Always ask them, what's the worst that could happen if you don't move there? What's the worst could happen if you do move there? What's the best could happen if you don't move there? And what's the best could happen if you do move there? And have them, just do like a line, just draw it out for you, do a picture. Best and worst case scenario. Which worst case scenario is easiest to live with? Okay. Let's say they moved into the house, turns out the pool has a crack in it, and they got to fix it. Most cases are going to say, well, that's still better than living in that little cheap apartment, right? See what I mean? The worst case scenario, the one is better than worst case scenario, the other one. What's the best case scenario? Best case scenario is you get your house with your pool, your kids are going to the school you want to go to, and you're done. You're done moving. It's over. This nightmare is over. It's done. all right, versus staying in that little apartment. Which can you most likely, which is the best scenario? Which one would you most likely, what's the outcome you most likely want? And when you do it that way, usually people, it's called upside potential versus downside risk. That's the formula. Just remember that upside potential versus downside risk, and let them give you the answers. Let them go through the mental gyrations to figure that out. You know, and usually when they do, and again, it's usually one of the partners is going to speak up and say, "Hey, I'm tired of waiting around. I'm tired of looking at properties. My kids want to hang out with their friends in their neighborhoods at their pools, not over here on the other side of town." That's the kind of discussion that will start to happen. Um, but in any case, does that help, guys? Yeah. And again, you've always got the option to fire them. Just say, "Hey, look, this relationship just not fruitful for me. I'm a professional, and please forgive me if this sounds rude, but I need to work with people that are serious and really understand and respect the business. And the fact that there's another family involved, right? I mean, I know you're looking out for yourself, but let's face it, the best way to get what you want is to help other people get what they want too. That's a fact, you know. So, in any case, let me see here. That was the four. It was 8:05. Holy cow! I can't believe we got them all in. Usually I go way too long on those things. So. Okay, any questions, guys? Hey, let me ask this: who here's got one that's a stumper? One you've had yourself or you're going through right now? I know it's a little bit after the class time, but I'll stay on. I just really want to help you guys, you know. And the more you do this, the more you hear it, the more you practice it, the more natural it's going to be when you're out there in the field. So you might as well do it, you know. But any thoughts, suggestions, or examples?
I can give you a
Anybody?
little example.
Okay, go for it, Kevin.
I've been talking with a person for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a piece of land
Mm-hmm.
in North Carolina. No, South Carolina. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't remember all the details now because I kind of put it aside. There was a will, but there wasn't any kind of probate set up or anything else. So when her husband passed away, she didn't know what to do, but she wants to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And, she hasn't done anything. She just has because she couldn't do anything because of probate time,
Mm-hmm.
she hasn't done anything.
How long a time frame are we talking?
Well, it's been more than a year now.
Okay.
But I don't remember if it was in both their names or just his. But
Were they
it's,
legally married?
yeah,
Okay, it should automatically, it does, that normally doesn't go through probate. It should go right to the spouse. There's only a few states that don't do that, and I think South Carolina is one of the Commonwealth, and that's automatic.
okay. Anyway, trying to get her to do something because of that has been interesting.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, if you've got any suggestions or know anything about how it works in South Carolina,
Well, the thing is for her, that's a very emotional thing, you know. I mean, my
yeah,
brother's going through that now. You've seen the house. You've been there before, and he
yeah,
doesn't want to leave. And to us, it's all obvious. He needs to get out of there. But in any case, sometimes you just have to let people see things on their own terms and their own time, especially with something like that. But
right,
what you could do is just write down some really practical, real world things to consider that could cause her either give her, the upside potential, greater benefit if she did these things, and if not, could cause greater harm, the downside risk. So in
right.
other words,
Well,
if she's, yeah, go
I
ahead, I'm
think
sorry.
she's she doesn't, they're not going to do anything with it. And one of her husband's children has now passed away, so it only leaves one person in the whole family.
Hmm.
And, she just wants to get back what she paid for that property 40 years ago or whatever it was.
So
So
so there was just one child from the husband, is she a stepmom, like second wife?
I think so, yeah. But been a
Okay.
long, long time because there were other kids. That's why there were
Mhm.
two kids from his.
So, I mean, but they could have heirs as well. So not to get in the weeds too much, but what I would ask her is, I'm assuming, is she living there?
No, she's not living on the property. It's just
Nobody's on the
undeveloped
property.
land. It's like an acre or something.
Oh, oh, there's no house on the property. I
No
got you.
house involved.
All right. I
In a
would,
different state than she lives in.
yeah, I would do the math, go into really flow.
Hmm.
And if you know the parcel, or do the search on vacant land in that town or county, and hopefully you can identify it. Um, see what Relief Flow thinks it's worth. Go to the county website. Where in South Carolina? Do you know what county it is, or what city? Or
It's about I'm going to say a 40-minute drive from Myrtle Beach. I went down there, but I haven't, it's been a while.
you
I
know what?
drove down and looked at it and walked the property and looked the area over.
You know what? Call Robert Hamby. He's not on tonight, but he's on the team. He literally just sold Friday a parcel down there. He lives in Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
Yeah. Get his input. He probably knows the values. I bet you could get really close
I'll
on it
have to
because
look up and find out what the address is and parcel number and all that again.
yeah.
I talked to her
But
just about a week ago. That's why when you're talking about this, I just said, have you decided what you're going to do with that? Did you sell it? What did you do? She said, no, I haven't done anything.
here's
So,
the thing, it does have some value. So one upside benefit is she could have a chunk of change, and because it's typically an inheritance, and I believe the way it works is since she's a spouse, um, well, if her name is on the property, she she'd be responsible for any gain in tax. But if it was in his name and she's picking it up through inheritance, then it's a
right,
different tax. The cost basis is the cost basis today, not 40 years ago.
right,
And so her inheritance tax is based on that the difference between that and what she actually sells it for. So it's much better to do the inheritance tax in 99% of the cases.
right,
But also a reminder, look at the property tax. You can see that online. See what she's paying in property tax every year. She may even have some insurance on it. I don't know. Um, she may have to be paying some other things like municipal water, sewage, and garbage, even if there's no turbine, some of those jurisdictions, they would charge you a fee just to have an account, even if you're not using water. Isn't that ridiculous?
yeah,
They actually have a fee for people who don't pay for the municipal water. They have well water. It's good. I mean, it's this these criminal politicians come up with it just baffles me. But in any case, I would just so she can compare upside potential and downside risk and say, right now, it's costing you money, but if you sell it, you put that somewhere, make more money, go on vacation, whatever you want to do. And then do
right.
like this. It's in the past because it's been a year and she's probably ready for something to change, something
Yeah.
positive.
Well, it's like I said, it's not much. It's not expensive. I can get it cheap. And I'm thinking about it. So I
Yeah.
figured,
You know what? We'll find out too, the zoning and the occupancy. See if it's got road frontage, utilities, that there are utilities right to the property line. All those things really matter a lot because they will
right.
increase their value.
I
But
know it's
also,
well and septic where it's at. And the
mhm,
property, the pole is close. Like I said, I went and walked the property. I drove and I found it. I drove all around the area, then drove down to the beach and stuck my foot in the water and left. You know,
how big's the parcel?
I think it's about an acre. It's not huge.
Yeah, but you know what? I bet you, are there any houses around? I mean, it might be spread out, but
Yeah, but it's a weird neighborhood. I mean, some places are, decent and several mobile homes. I even saw travel trailers in there because it's flooded before. And they just decided at one point to pull their trailer out and leave if a storm came. And I went, okay, well, this is different.
well, that's a detriment if it's in a floodplain. But also remember with vicinity, right? You can Robert is he's in the program.
Oh, is he?
He can probably tell you who the builders are around there, and he just could say, hey, look, who'd like to build on this? You could buy a Kathy yourself and say, look, builder, I'll partner with you, build a spec home. Robert will market it to sell it. You partner with the builder to make a profit, and Robert gets a commission.
Yeah, well, I haven't decided what to do, but
Mhm.
that's when I checked out that I found out that mobile homes are more energy efficient now than houses are.
Yeah.
It
Well,
just
actually,
ha it
yeah.
just has to be built up enough that
Mhm.
it wouldn't worry about the flood.
Well, there's actually, you guys are in for a real treat this in the coming year. The technology and the material advances that are being made in new construction are
Uh-huh.
mind-boggling. There's wall material now that's actually concrete, and they're building concrete wall houses, but you can't tell because it just they're going to paint it and make it look like anything they want. It's got regular windows and doors and roofing and the whole 9 yards. It's cheaper, it's hurricane proof, tornado proof, it's almost zero maintenance,
So
and it's
like the
energy
old
efficient.
the old houses that were built in Florida in the 50s.
Could be. Well, apparently the technology is a lot more advanced, but there's some amazing technology that's being developed and material that's being developed right in front of us,
Yeah.
and they're already being built, and houses are a lot less, a lot more affordable than they were traditional stick built wise. So I'm just telling you, there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I'm really excited for what's happening, for us in our future. And in spite of what you hear in Washington, D.C., I do believe that new Affordable Housing Act, it is going to go through. It's heads may roll, but it's going to go through. You know,
Yeah. Well, I'll
it's
have to
just
drive down again so I can look and see what else has happened in the area,
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's like I said, it's commutable to um, Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
it's going to be built up. I just don't know when.
Oh, it already has been since I was a kid. Shoot, North Myrtle Beach, that was hardly even there. It was
Yeah.
like a Ferris wheel. In a couple of hotels now, it's miles and miles all the way to the North Carolina border.
Right.
It's amazing. It's been a long time, but in any case, real quick plug, and I'm going to let you guys go. Is what I was just talking about, guys, is a big, big deal because of the shortage of housing in the country. Everybody knows in the industry knows new construction is the way out. There is no other way. You can only convert so many old schoolhouses and churches to housing, right? You have to build new properties, and you can't always build apartment buildings because not everybody wants to live in an apartment building. So the technology, these aren't just tiny homes either. I'm talking about full-size homes. Okay. But the methodology, they're 3D printing homes. You can go
Hmm.
online, Google it, watch it happen. They literally 3D printing an entire home in a matter of days. So
You can
that's
buy
good
them off
news.
of Amazon.
Yeah. Well, my grandparents' house was a Sears Craftsman house. They paid 2,500 bucks for it in 1920 something, you know, and they built it themselves. They came in the kit, everything was all cut, came in a big truck. They put it all together, the uncles, aunts, and cousins, and nieces and nephews, and they were in matter of days. So, but in any case, back to us. I just want you guys to know there's no way I can guarantee the future or even predict it. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing spells really good news for us. Okay. So particularly if you understand new construction. So for those of you in that first go round, boy, you really got to take advantage of what you were given. And there's 6 people in this next go round. I'm telling you, it's going to pay off. Long term, it's just not like a 1 year and one and done kind of thing. This is going to continue for probably anywhere from 10 years to a full generation, you know. So just stay tuned, pay attention to the news and be prepared. This is not the kind of thing we're going to wait and see. That's don't do that. I saw in the big recession, all the agents said, I'm just going to wait and see. They were gone. Whew. But the agents said, you know what? I'm going to wake up here. I'm still going to get out there and swing the bat. I'm going to try because what else am I going to do? Not if you don't try, you get zero. At least if you try, you're probably going to get something. So here, it's better to learn and be in front of the curve, be lead from the front, and pay attention to what's happening out there and be part of new construction. I'm telling you, it's gonna pay you well. So and you're gonna help a lot of people. Feels good, you know. So by the way, one of the techniques is for investing, new construction. Yep, investors buy brand new homes because they get a 10-year warranty from top to bottom. They attract the best tenants paying the best rents. And the first guy I ever met that did this in Alabama, year 9 would come around, he would offer owner financing to his tenants that had been there 9 years. We say one more year, if you stay 1 more year, I'll let you take over the mortgage payments for a small fee. And that's what he did. And then he had a built-in annuity for another, whatever, 10 or 20 years, you know? Isn't that amazing? So, yep. Now, up until now, that might have been pretty tough the last couple of years because the way prices have gone up. But now with this new material and the new techniques, that whole investing strategy is all of a sudden back in the limelight again, especially in places where there's a lot of growth. I'm going to tell you right now, Alabama is one of them, guys. You know, if you're not there, you just meet people who are there. You know, you're faced with them. So Arkansas too, by the way. So the sleeper states. South Carolina was a sleeper state, but now it's kind of the cat's out of the bag. So we got 2 left, Alabama and Arkansas. There's not much left after that, guys. So jump in, get it while the getting's good. And wherever you are, just be part of new construction. I mean, why risk it and not? You know, just do that. Okay, I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to go eat some chocolate cake. But I'm proud of myself because it's organic. So I'm allowed to have the calories. So all right, you guys. Any other final thoughts or questions, guys? Okay.
Enjoy your cake.
Yes,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you. Good night.
Thanks. Have a
You
good
guys
night.
have an awesome.
Thanks,
I'll see you
everybody.
I'll see you in the huddles and I'll see you on the one-on-ones.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Monday Night Live. Consider subscribing. Agents, want to learn more? Schedule a call with Gary using the link in the description.